we need the fantastic stories with a wonderful ending. They just show coziness, happiness, and full warmth. And in the clicker. Thank you. In the 13th century, Marco Polo was the first connection between Eastern and European cultures. For example, trust me, you'll be very on top of fashion if you just take any tablecloth from any Balkan restaurant. For example, you can use it as a scarf on the head, as a scarf for the shoulders, as a skirt, or even just as a bag. For many designers around the world, traditions give them bio ideas, fresh ideas, a colorful therapy, and most importantly, modern configurations. This isn't really called plagiarism, because fashion houses have been doing that for ages. For example, the hippies in the 60s. They were the first ones to incorporate the colorful embroidery belts, colorful edge of pants, skirts, or other just colorful clothes. Later, in the 1990s, there was a boom of ethnic Balkan style where designers have been influenced immensely. For example, Vivienne Westwood, Givenchy, Chloé, Valentino 2014 and 15, or Alexander McQueen in 2001. The interest towards the non-culture has been famous since the beginning of the 20th century. There was an immense amount of research on high waists, clear appearance, or any very specific embroidery element. There was no actual season or an age or a specific event. They just show happiness. Most importantly, with those clothing, you look politically correct and dynamic, which is very fashionable right now. A lot of elements which are made from silk, leather, wool aren't really replicas of clothing from Serbia, Bulgaria, Greece, or Romania. They don't really bring a nostalgic look, but actually bring a multicultural society together, shown by the Swiss Guards in Vatican, or the wonderful exhibition from the Victorian Albert Museum of Christian Dior, who's actually one of the biggest thefts of Balkan motifs. So, the constantly changing trend. For many years, traditions have been a crucial part of the fashion industry, and for many years I've been crucially interested for fashion. Every country has an evolution, and those traditions move with the evolution of a country. Not only the materials that have been used, but also it's not always about showing the newest trends or to satisfy a customer. It's about the core values of a country and the origins of that country. My passion for fashion has been since I was 14, and now 5 years have passed. Through this, I want to discover my real passion and show it out loud, because fashion is really the only way that I can express myself out loud, since I'm an introvert. I'm from Bulgaria, and here the folklore is very, very valued. Since Bulgaria is a very old country, the traditions in that country are still one of the oldest existing in the world, all the way back from the classical antiquity, all the way now to the 21st century. In Bulgaria, the traditional clothing, in the Balkan countries, the traditional clothing is very similar. They have very specific motifs, ornaments, and meanings. But actually, in Bulgaria, they have very deep meanings, and mesh just implementing it. The female costumes are much more colorful and blooming than the male ones. As much as the Balkans change throughout time, so that the beliefs, legends, and interpretations also change. In the beginning, the clothing only represented the fertile farmlands, like this, which is the Sukman dress. This is the most widespread female clothing in Bulgaria. In Bulgaria, most of the clothing is the same because it shares most of its characteristics. Somewhere it can be found sleeveless depending on the weather in the region, or long sleeves like here. In the future, the meaning of clothes became much more richer than just crops. The first example is the bridal costume from the Diplo, which is from the Rhodope Mountains. It's from the early 18th century. you can see the amazing crown, the lots of flowers which represents bloom, and also the immense amount of coins. The next example is is a very interesting bridal costume from the Prilep region in Macedonia, which is from the early 19th century. As you can see, there's flowers, coins, buckles with clips, and the crown, which represents prosperity in life. Most importantly is the belt, which has survived in almost all the history of the Balkan cultures. So, leaving the old clothes aside, I'll travel to the future where designers have used the old principle and designs and created an immense amount of wonderful and amazing pieces, I would say. The first example is from the 2009 John Galliano ready-to-wear collection, where the designer has been inspired by the Russian Balkan culture. Here, as you can see, looking back, that's how he translates the pannier-hipped headdresses, full-skirt coats, balloon-sleeve blouses, and palm-treed cross-laced boots. Every fashion designer interprets the old clothing into a different way. They give them new perspective. For example, shown by Vivienne Westwood. She uses the Turkish harem pants, which show the Western cultures. In her example, the pants show a very classy and casual look. Also, Dior, he uses a very interesting way of interpreting the flowers on the head, which represent the beauty of woman in general and bloom. Also, going back to Galliano, he uses the Slavic brides to incorporate a very traditional look in understanding the world. Finally, Dolce Gabbana. They interpret their clothing in a very interesting Russian way. They were immensely incorporated from the Russian sign of culture, the babushka and matryoshka. Also, Tao. This is a very interesting brand, which uses very interesting embroidered elements. I haven't displayed because this is a brand which I can't really explain because it's not really famous in the world. It's actually very famous in Bulgaria. So, in conclusion, through my own experience, I've immensely been intrigued from fashion, and fashion has been incorporated in my DNA. I have one last question to you. Do you think traditions are really time traveling? Thank you.